Good afternoon, folks. My name is Scott Miller, and I'm a buy and hold investor and a note investor in the Atlanta, Georgia area. And I am a teacher for the Seller Held Mortgage Group, and we meet on the third Thursday of each month between 12 to 1 Eastern Standard Time. We like to think of that as you take your lunch and come on and talk about all things seller held mortgage notes wise. Um, we typically talk about purchasing these after they've been originated, although some of the information that we're going to discuss today will also apply if you decide to originate notes on your own. So really excited about this opportunity. For most of us here, it's a top flight way to get a good yield in a low interest rate environment that we have today. It's typically pretty easy to understand. It's a relatively safe collateral. And so people ask me, why would I want to consider notes? What makes it superior to any other investment? And I would say it is an excellent investment that you can purchase on something that most of us as real estate investors already understand. You get the protections that the banks have. For instance, your collateral is insured, and you have simple collection procedures. That's kind of a well-worn path that banks have played in, and it's been established in most states for probably over 100 years as to how collections work, what happens if someone doesn't pay, those sorts of things. Seller-held mortgages can be held in self-directed retirement accounts. You may notice that Advanta IRA is one of our sponsors here at RAUSI. They do a fantastic job in managing these notes in these accounts. Others do this as well. So it's a good way to acquire income that's at least tax deferred as you move forward. And something that becomes more important over time, I think, as you become more successful as an investor, you want to be able to buy into investments that take a low level of time involvement for you and that create passive income. Now, I'm a fan of all types of real estate investment. I just happen to land here as part of an investment strategy because I do like getting high yield returns. I do understand rental properties. I've owned them. I understand real estate. I happen to invest the time in the area where I invest, which is the state of Georgia, for notes and understand procedures and that sort of thing. And I like the fact that I get payments either electronically or in a PO box every month, and those get deposited. And that is pretty much the extent of my involvement here. In fact, for those of you who even want less involvement, there are servicers that will service these notes for you for around $25 a month as well. Talk about the ultimate in slackness, which is not a bad thing, because there's one thing you can't buy more of, it is time. You can always buy more things, but time, when your time is up, your time is up. So time is important, and this is one way to generate income with less time. So note considerations. So we're going to talk a little bit about what to consider when you decide to maybe purchase one note or maybe get into it as part of your business, where you might want to invest. So geographic considerations. Laws are mostly state specific as it relates to originating these things. And collection procedures and all that good stuff. So a little investment in figuring out what processes are in your state are helpful. Economic considerations. This is my favorite one. Now, I happen to live in the go-go area of Atlanta, where we have 29 counties where the population and economic growth is just banging on all cylinders and has been for the past 15 to 20 years. Probably won't stop. That said, we invest all over the state of Georgia, and there are many, many areas of our state where population growth has stopped and people are leaving. People are leaving quickly and they're not being replaced. And so part of that has to do with jobs. People typically move where there are jobs, and they typically move away from places where there are not jobs. So as part of considering what kind of notes you might want to buy, you want to ask yourself the question, is this an area that is going to at least grow at an average rate, or is it not going to grow at all, as demonstrated by the current data? I suggest you look at the city data, citydata.com. It's a very summary look, but you can see if population is coming up and down, what's going on there. If population is going down, you might want to give that a consideration. That doesn't mean you don't necessarily want to invest there, but you do want to be aware of it as it relates to what your investment strategy would be. So another note consideration for you who may be considering getting into the note business is how much do you want to invest and how do you want to divide it? So the reason that's important is everyone has an investing profile, and you want to do what makes the most sense to you. So for instance, do you want to buy $100,000 note? Do you want to buy $10,000 notes? Do you want to buy two $50,000 notes? What appeals to you as an investor? I tend to like and enjoy smaller note sizes, primarily because there's very little, if any, competition. Although compared to the competition in the single family space, there's basically no competition in the note business. There are some that buy nationally, but they are really looking for something that's a square box, man. It's got to meet their criteria. They're just not going to bid on, which is okay. You have more flexibility. And you can decide to deviate from any standard that you want. And hopefully, if you're kind of studying your laws, the state-specific laws are important to keep an eye on. In the state of Georgia, it's very easy to foreclose on a property if someone, so the worst-case situation is somebody stops paying on a note, they won't interact with you, they get in their truck and they leave the country or the state or whatever. And then you have to foreclose on it and then you get it back. In the state of Georgia, it's about $1,500 now to commence a foreclosure. And despite what the national media may say, there is not a foreclosure moratorium for seller-held mortgages. That was for government-insured loans. There is also not a moratorium on evictions in the sense that you do not have a leasing relationship with somebody that's purchasing a home on time with you. So it's a very different thing there. So you can kind of bound your worst case scenario, right? You want to handle that and take a look at that. And of course, my favorite is, would I want to own this property if a payer defaulted? And typically, if the answer is no to that question, you may decide that you may not want to be involved. And that's okay. There's no reason that you have to buy everything that you see. There are many, many, many of these notes generated every year, even though we have some of the loosest lending that we've had in a long time. So in 2019, there were about 20 billion of these notes, $20 billion worth of these notes created in the United States. In the state of Georgia, there were about 4,000 notes created in that 1 year. 2020 was on track to be the same. They just haven't posted the results yet. So that's a lot to shoot at. And there's a lot out there. It's probably everywhere you are, you can find some of these notes. So that last consideration, would I want to own this property if the payer defaults? I would definitely consider that in your calculations. Go from there. So to continue with note considerations. So when you're looking at the notes, you probably want to know, has the payer been making timely payments? That's probably an important point. And the reason is that you want to price it differently. If someone hasn't been making timely payments or any payments at all, you will really want to make a price adjustment accordingly. If someone has stopped paying for beyond 90 to 120 days, that is a non-performing note. That's not a performing note. And so you will want to change how you will price that note. You wouldn't want to pay the same price that you would for a performing note because it's not performing, and you may have to kind of spring into action. No reason you can't take a performing note and make it performing. You're going to have to get in there and work with the note payer to get them there. There are techniques for doing that. It's not something you should be afraid of, particularly if you've ever been a landlord. The techniques are very similar, but it's something for consideration. So another question you want to look at is if the payer has been making timely payments, you want to understand how long has this note been originated and how long has this payer been making payments. So they term that seasoning, and I think that's a great word. What does it say? To me, what it says, this is probably one of the most important criteria to consider, because once people establish a habit of making payments, they tend to follow that habit. Now, it could be that they don't have the best credit in the world. Sometimes that's why these notes are created. They don't have the credit necessarily to go to a bank and get credit income or what have you, to do that. But if they've been making timely payments for 5 years, you've probably got something there, right? Because you created a situation where they're apt to continue to make payments, and there are a couple of things are going to happen, right? They're creating their own equity, so they're less likely to walk away from a home that they're paying on, and they're more apt to have made improvements to the house, be raising a family there. It's a totally different situation than if it were a rental home. So they have.
Hey, Scott, real fast. We have a couple people, so they're saying, "What's a note?"
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. So a seller-held mortgage note is a mortgage that was originated when a seller sold a home and took back a mortgage to accept payment over time. So there are all types of notes. There are business notes, there are others, but we're talking here about seller-held mortgage notes. So let's say you had a house that you sold to somebody else, and as part of that transaction, you took back a 10-year note, taking payments instead of taking cash up front. Does that answer the question?
Yes, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm trying to unmute myself. Yes. Okay, we're good.
Okay, we're good so far. Okay, good. Yeah. By all means, step right in, Stacy. Don't be bashful.
Wait. Somebody's saying like a lease option?
Oh no, it's different from a lease option in that lease option, although you could say it's similar, but a note itself is actually where that the new owner takes title to the house and pays you monthly as a mortgage. In other words, you take a mortgage back and they're paying on a mortgage to you. So think of yourself as the bank in this instance. You are the bank. Lease option is a little different. So that a lease option is people renting from you, and you may give them a rental credit, but it's not an ownership interest.
Okay.
Is that good? Okay. Stacy, I appreciate you monitoring the chat for me. That's
Yeah,
very
of course.
helpful. It's very helpful. So one of those considerations when you're looking at, and we're talking about here, purchasing notes that others have originated when they sold houses. You're looking at what is the investment to value and what equity has been created in the home since the person has started paying on the house. And obviously, the larger the equity is, the better spot that you're in. and you want to look and find out what the value of the house is versus the note that you're buying. You're obviously going to want the value of the house to be higher, much higher if possible, than what the value of the note is. And in most cases, if someone's been paying on it any longer than 2 years, you'll see that. And it's pretty easy calculation to make. Go to Zillow.com, punch in that address of that home, find out what that, you'll find out what the note balance is from the note seller, and you can kind of make a pretty easy estimation of where you want to be. So the other thing that you want to consider is what is your desired yield too, and that's how we talk about notes is a yield. So basically a percentage yield on the thing that you are buying, because what you are buying is an accounts receivable. So the desired yield is entirely up to you. It's a free form activity. So you have to decide what it is you're willing to accept in a desired yield. We typically choose 15% yield to make our offers. That's because we do a lot of our own marketing and we reach out to individual note holders directly. As opposed to going to websites. Although going to websites is very educational and you can buy notes off of websites all day long and get very positive yields. So the other thing that you want to think about, and this is important, once you decide that you want to have a particular yield, a percentage that you want to earn on your money every year, you have to figure out how to do time value of money calculations so you can make an offer to somebody. So we're going to go over that very briefly here today. Now, in our monthly chats, we do a lot of this because once you understand your financial calculator, you are on the road to amassing wealth, not just through notes, but to everything. And there's really only 5 keys you need to understand. I promise it really is that easy. So there's a financial calculator here. You can download them off the internet as well, HP 12 or HP 12 IBs or whatever it is. Search that. You can download that onto your phone. So they have an app for that. Like Stacy said, now they have an app for everything. So they have an app for doing your notes. So the 5 keys that we talk about in looking at the time value of money calculation.
Hey, Scott, real fast start before you get into this.
Sorry?
Before you get into that, a couple people are asking what the website was again. And this says website for LTV, I guess, maybe.
Oh,
It says, what was the web address again, please, to see LTV? I didn't catch the website. You said you must have mentioned some website.
I don't think I mentioned a website, but we will mention a few. So I was talking about loan to value. LTV stands for loan to value or investment to value. Oh, I know what it was. I was talking about going to Zillow.com to find out an approximate value on the retail value of the house that may be underlying a note that you're looking to purchase.
Okay, so just use Zillow.com is what you're saying.
Just use Zillow.com. It's just it's an approximate idea so you can get a feel for. So I'm looking at a note for $50,000 that's got 5 years remaining on it. How does this compare to the collateral? So that single family house is your collateral. So I want to see, I want to go to Zillow and punch in the address for that home and say it's worth $75,000 or better yet, it's worth $100,000 and you're buying a $50,000 note. So your investment value is 50%. So investment to value. So it's kind of an approximate idea of, okay, so I've got some space in my note. If something, this looks like a reasonable investment to me. If something should happen and somebody moves down the road, leaves the state, whatever, I've got a house that's worth $100,000 and I basically have a note for $50,000. I can foreclose it, take it back and resell it or whatever. Although practically speaking, what would happen in today's situation is you would be contacted to purchase the note by a savvy investor who would want to take it over. So probably never gets to the foreclosure situation today, at least once it starts being listed in the paper. So I think that's what they were looking for, Zillow.com. So let's talk a little bit about time value of money calculations. So 5 keys that you're going to want to understand: the present value in our situation, it's going to be the current mortgage balance. The future value, oftentimes that's going to be 0 if you're buying an entire note, because in the future, they're going to pay that note down to 0. The number of periods is typically the number of months of a mortgage, not the number of years. And then I is interest rate per period. And PMT or payment is the payment per period. For our case, it's going to be monthly payments in most cases. Most people don't originate notes with any other payment other than monthly. So here's an example. Let's see if this helps. So you get a call from somebody in Toccoa, Georgia, which is extreme North Georgia, up in the mountains, beautiful part of the world. And they have a $32,000 note. They originated, it had 180 payments, 6% annual interest rate. And so what you want to do is you first want to calculate the payment on that note and see if it matches up to what the note seller tells you, right? That's kind of important. You want to make sure that you're talking the same language and that everybody's on board here. So you input 32,000 into the present value. You input 0 into the future value. You put 180 into N, which once again is the number of periods. And then you input 6, the annual interest rate, divided by 12, the number of months in a year, into I. And you hit compute payment, and you get $270 per month. Okay, so that is the state of the situation here. So now you've gotten this call, and you've got to decide, okay, I need to call this person back, and I need to make a note offer. Okay, so but before you do that, you want to figure out what the current principal balance of the note is as well. So because most people won't call you one day after it, and in fact, you most likely will want to market to note seller lists where there is some seasoning in that mortgage, because you don't necessarily want to take on defaulted notes right out of the gate. You may never want to. Depends on your personality, your style, and how you want to operate. So what you do is you've figured out what the payment is. Now you want to determine what's the current principal balance of that note, because that is what you are buying. It's the current principal balance of that note and the right to receive that payments for the next 106 months in this example. So there were 180 payments total, 74 having been made to date. And so let's look at that. So 74 months is a long time in the note business. That's over 6 years. So that is a solid note in terms of seasoning. That means this person has been making those payments timely for that amount of time, and probably pretty solid in there. Paid this down enough along with the appreciation of the asset to make it something that you may want to bid on. So there are 106 payments remaining of the 180. So you punch in 106, so that's how many payments remain, and you compute the present value, which gives you $22,124 of the remaining principal balance. So now you know what the current principal balance is. You've calculated what the payment is. You're in a good spot. Then you have to determine, okay, now I have to calculate what is my offer price going to be. And that has everything in the world to do with what you want your desired yield to be. And so the way to handle that is that you don't hit C, you don't correct anything, you keep this in the calculator register. This is a computer that basically does everything for you. So you say you desire 15% yield on it. You input 15, divide that by 12. That's the number of periods. So you get a desired yield of 1.25% per period. That's per month. And compute present value. So that desired rate of return means you offer $15,712 for the note. Now, if there are closing costs, and there may be, there may not be. You can do some of these without closing costs on your own. In fact, we'll talk in a minute about how we'll send you our contract for your use, as well as documents that we use to close notes. You're welcome to those. We want you to be successful in this. So we're always here to help to do that. So then you make your offer, right? So you make your offer verbally, call them back, you provide a written contract, you offer that up, say, hey, you'll make an offer. In a lot of cases, you're not going to get an acceptance right up front unless it's a real impulse sale. That's okay. Just stay cool, stay your offer. And ask them if they want a written follow-up that you can email to them, send to them for their consideration. If they say yes, you send them a written offer for their consideration. And keep in mind that in these situations, this is a big ticket item. Even for small notes, $10,000 is a lot of money. I don't care if you're a multimillionaire or not. $10,000 is still a lot of money. So oftentimes this is a big, you would treat this like any big ticket purchase. You're going to need to stay in touch with them, follow up with either emails, calls, or postcards, because this is a long-term business model in terms of helping people convert their notes to cash that they can spend today, which is a highly attractive option for those who may want to take a vacation right now or buy a boat or something like that. That $12,000, $15,000 gets you a pretty nice boat, for instance. The other thing that you can do, and by the way, feel free to send us a request. We'll be happy to send you copies of that contract at this email address here, scottforservice@gmail.com. We also have a website, notesandliens.com. The other thing that you can do is you can marry that offer up for the full note with offering for partial payments. So instead of buying the entire note, maybe you offer to buy a half of the remaining note for, say, half of the principal balance. That typically amounts to a yield that is 2 times what the rate yield is on the mortgage itself. You can also do that with quarter of a note for a quarter of the principal balance, and that typically equates to 4 times the mortgage yield. It's very strange math, but I promise you it works. Punch it in your calculator, you'll see. We discuss that a lot during our monthly note discussions, because this is like magic math. Amortization schedules and everything are real neat. And you can use amortization schedules to check the calculation of what it is that your offer is. So let's see how we're doing. Okay. So a couple of items. So for those of you that may have an interest in purchasing a note or a number of notes, here's a website we recommend you go take a look at. And we like it because it's well done. It's called paperstack.com. And on that, at any one time, they'll have up to 175 notes, mortgage notes. These are mortgage notes, nationwide. And you can kind of see what's available in your geographic area of interest. So they have a listing of these notes. They have pictures. They have yield calculations for you. You're allowed to not only go on there and see what they're asking for them, but you can make an offer for a note and see if it's accepted. They have performing. Once again, those are the notes where people are actually paying on time. And then you have non-performing, which is where people have stopped paying for some period of time. And we joke that sometimes the distance between performing and non-performing is not so much, but you do want to be aware of that, because there is a different set of techniques that you would want to undertake with respect to purchasing non-performing notes. There's a big area where people buy non-performing notes in the country, hedge funds, and individual investors. There's a lot out there. But take a drive-by at paperstack.com and you'll see notes that are available. Keep in mind, just like Mike alluded to, you're not reaching out to people who've got houses listed with the real estate agent. The difference between paper stack and doing your own set of note buying is that you can typically expect to get higher yields when you do the marketing, right? And you do all the negotiating and yourself up front with somebody, as opposed to when somebody lists something to a website that's national. And actually it's not national, it's international, because international investors buy these notes too. They don't list international notes on there, which is good. They're all for the United States only at this point. I could not imagine that they wouldn't expand at some point to include some version of that. Although American rules on mortgages are a lot more transparent than a lot of other countries, and they're actually very simple. If you invest a little time, you will see that and taking a look at the areas where you may have interest in acquiring notes. So also consider doing marketing for notes in your area where you have specific interest. You may be interested in the state where you live. You may not. You may be in a state that has a terrible set of regulations that they've put together for collection laws. I can name a few that I wouldn't have a lot of interest in. New York State, for instance, plenty of defenses, takes up to 5 years to do foreclosure. Georgia happens to be a non-judicial foreclosure state, which means it takes you about 90 days to process a foreclosure, and it's pretty inexpensive, and you don't need a judge to rule on it. Texas is the same. Texas may be even easier than Georgia. So I would consider, in your circumstance, investing in notes in a state where you don't live, if the state where you live has laws that make it difficult to work with. But you can find out what your foreclosure laws in the state are by simply Googling foreclosure laws in the state of Florida, whatever it is. You'll get a nice summary out there of any place you want to consider investing. And I would encourage you to also consider doing your own marketing for notes. One of the things that you can, I wanted to tell you about a website called notesellerlist.com. In fact, I think I need to put this in the chat. This is a group of folks that have been generating lists for ages, actually for up to 20 years. And what they sell you are leads, seller leads, or potential note seller leads. So when a note seller originates it gets recorded at the county courthouse in the real estate records. And what these folks do is they go through there and scrape that data, and they will sell you leads for any state, county in the United States. So you can call them and special order what it is that you want. So in our case, we prefer smaller notes, so 1,000 to 100,000 in the state of Georgia, all counties, what have you, that sort of thing. So you can dictate to them what it is that you want, and they will sell you those leads at a pretty reasonable price, no more than 20 cents per lead, which is very reasonable, I think. I think you will find that to be the case as well. Let's see. So those are the suggested follow-up items. If you have thought about or considered note investing as something that you may want to do, once again, it's for passive income. It's another item for passive income, particularly for those of you who have sold your homes at the top of the market here and you have a lot of cash sitting around. This might be something you might want to consider. That's some of the things that we've been doing, some of the rentals that we own that we sold because we think the market's kind of frothy right now. And we're having challenges finding more to buy single family homes, but we love buying old rentals as well. But this is another passive income stream that you can have here. And I think I'll go ahead and jump into some. Do we have any questions?
So far, no, everybody's just listening.
Oh, okay, good, okay. Well, I would, so we're doing well on time, which is fantastic. I'm always worried about our time when we have an hour. So for folks that are there, could you put in the chat how you may have interest in notes and how we can help you to investigate that further?
Okay, put into the chat if you're interested in notes. Do you have any examples of some like properties that you've bought, maybe the process of what you've done for this? Because I mean, I think this is kind of a, for a lot of people, it's a little bit more difficult topic to get.
Sure. So, well, Stacy, we kind of just went over one, but let's go back over it because you're right. It's not easy. So what you're buying is the right to get an accounts receivable, to take these notes and to get the payments over time. So we went. Let me stop share for just a second. I will go back into that example.
Yeah, sometimes visually, I think it helps a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Trying to go back up in the context of that.
You're gonna have to unshare your screen and then reshare the screen that you want to get on. Yeah, Zoom's kind of weird.
Yeah. Okay. So here's an example. So here's an example right here. Let's So here's an example in North Georgia here, in Toccoa, Georgia.
Okay, we got it.
Yeah, so there's a modular home that's on an acre of land. And back about 5 years ago, or actually 6 years ago, the owner took back a mortgage note on this land, this modular home land combination for $32,000. And that note that she took back was for 15 years or 180 payments. It was at a 6% annual interest rate. And so here we talk about calculating what that payment amount is. But in short, basically what this seller was doing was when she took back the note, she had received a down payment. She agreed to finance the $32,000 for $270 per month for the next 15 years. And so that person had been paying religiously for about the last 6 years. And so she had paid that down to a present value or a mortgage balance of $22,124 when the note owner called us in response to direct mail that we sent to her. And so she called us because we said, hey, call us, we'll buy your note. And so when she called, the balance is $22,124 on this modular home configuration. When you look at modular home land configuration, about an acre up there in the North Georgia mountains. Looking at it, is very vigorous economic environment, plenty of jobs, close to a bunch of amenities up there, real estate just going gangbusters up there. So, and so she called us and said, well, look, hey, I'm moving to Europe and I want a quote on my note. course, the first thing I said was, take me with you. What part of Europe are you moving to? Spain is where she's going. Lucky thing that she is. And so she was calling to see what her options were in terms of liquidating this asset so she didn't have to continue to collect payments all the way for the next 106 payments, which I think if you divide that by 12, you're talking about 9 years and change, something like that. And so she called with that in mind. And then so we said, okay, well, give us a second, we'll figure out what we can pay for it. And we had that yield, the current mortgage note, interest rate was 6%, but we had a desired yield of 15%, which means that after we calculated it, we said, okay, for us to get a yield of 15% from now for the next 106 payments, we can offer her $15,712 for this note. And so we made that offer, and she's mulling it over right now. And of course, we will stay in touch with her on that. And should we reach agreement on that, we may reach out to her with additional offers, including offering her a partial option, although it doesn't sound like that would necessarily work for her because she wants to wash her hands of it. She's going to move to Europe. She doesn't want to get any more payments. But if for some reason we can't agree to the whole note payment, what we can do is offer her half of the remaining note payments to buy for half of the principal balance. So that means you're buying a portion of the remaining note payments, and she doesn't have to accept a discount. Obviously, she has a note that's worth $22,000. She's not excited about taking a discount to $15,000 to sell it. In this way, when you offer a partial, you can increase your yield at the same time that they can take no or very little of a discount. So I think that's an example that can help folks. Looks like there's a couple things in the chat there.
Yeah, we do. We have a couple questions. So let me go through them.
Okay.
Let me see. Okay. I've heard of notes, but I've never knew anything about it until today. I'm interested, but not quite ready. I see. I have a local lender who sends me non-performing notes. I found what they were asking was more than what I could get the place for off the courthouse steps.
Okay. So when you say you found what they're, so in other words, off the courthouse steps, what state are you in?
That's Todd. Let him kind of give us some more details. And then this, let's see, he put Tennessee.
Tennessee. Okay. Tennessee's another non-judicial foreclosure state. We like those. So I guess, so you've got a lender that's sending you non-performing notes. And so that's a special kind of note, right? So that one may require some work. So Todd, if you're willing to do the work, it's not necessarily a bad thing to go ahead and buy that note and undertake the foreclosure on your own. If you think that someone will pay you more than that note is worth, or rather, excuse me, that you think someone will purchase it off the courthouse steps for more than is owed on the note, then that's certainly a win for you. You could buy these defaulted notes and take them to foreclosure yourself, if I understood the question. If you're interested in doing that in the state of Tennessee, I would recommend that you ask around to real estate investors or friends or anyone who operates in Tennessee and find a good foreclosure attorney and see if you might not want to make an offer on these defaulted notes. Now, I'll tell you, on these defaulted notes, typically people pay, in the area of 50% of the balance of the thing to pick it up. That's just a rule of thumb, because defaulted notes bring with them complications. Although those are complications that you can most certainly handle, you want to find out what those complications are and be compensated for it. The other thing you can do, Todd, is if you buy a defaulted note, you can reach out to the note payer and recast the note yourself, or you can work out something with them where they sign a quitclaim deed to you and you can take that property over. So there's all kinds of opportunities with respect to notes. Remember, once you purchase it, it's just you and the note payer that have to negotiate a deal. So there's a number of ways to make this thing very good for you.
And this is why you need to come to his sessions, Todd.
Yeah, this is why. Yeah, it's hard at a limited time space too. But by all means, reach out to us at notesandliens.com or at scottforservice@gmail.com. We're happy to help you do this, whatever it is you want to do with it. But defaulted notes are a special opportunity. They come with their own set of challenges. But once you can create rapport between you and a note payer, you would be surprised the things that you can work out. That would be favorable for you both.
Okay, good. All right. Let's see real fast. Got a couple more questions or statements. Let's see. How do you set up your entities for these?
Well, you can buy them personally, or you can put it in. We use a limited liability company because they're so easy to set up. Instead of Georgia, I think it's $50 to start and $50 a year admin or something like that. But that's up to you. You can buy them personally. There's not a lot of liability associated with these things. Just your call.
Do you ever use, and actually Deanna Britt is coming on after me, so I'm speaking next, and then Deanna's coming on and she's talking about structuring entities and stuff. That's her topic.
That's great. So
make sure you're here. Yeah, Deanna's awesome. So
yeah, she's awesome. She's got it all. We use a limited liability company set up in the state of Georgia.
Yeah. So come, make sure you stay for her. Okay, who else? Have you ever used T-Valve software for your note business?
I do not, but I have seen it used, and I think it's a very functional thing. It's a good thing. I prefer having a calculator or a downloadable thing to my phone, but they do the same thing. They help you with those 5. All you need is those 5 variables, right? Present value, future value, payment, interest rate, and period. So that's what T-Value does. And noteinvestor.com, if you've got a chance, go there. Tracy Rui is outstanding, and she uses T-Value. She likes T-Value.
And I could tell, like you can date an investor by how they calculate their analysis.
True.
Isn't that true?
I've been busted. Yes.
It's like back in the day, you only had a calculator, right?
That's right.
He's like, I only use calculators, and me too. I only use spreadsheets. It's so funny, right? And now
it's great.
Like using these softwares and stuff. So yeah, it's funny. You can date yourself by you can date your investor by how they calculate their deal analysis.
Yeah, you probably remember when Lotus 123 was the only spreadsheet too, right?
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, we have a couple more. Okay, performing notes sell at a higher price than non-performing typically, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you think that note buyers need any prior experience in other areas of real estate, such as wholesaling or rehabbing or buying hold before they do notes?
I do not. I think that you can. I have a lot of experience as a buy and hold landlord, which gives me some specialized knowledge around collections. But I think you can figure this out on your own. And with help from teachers here and surfing the internet, it's not terribly difficult. And there's not a lot of competition in it. People say there's a lot, but there's really not, especially in the smaller space. In fact, a lot of us note investors like pass deals on to each other without a referral fee, right? So because we know what we like. Right. And so we know who the other folks, what they like. And they may have people that purchase notes and their yield requirement might be 8%, but they want to put $250,000 to work, right? And that's not a model that we're in particularly interested in. So.
Okay, good. We have a couple more questions. So the sellers are all owners of a paid off property and they're doing seller financing now, but they're no longer interested.
So that's pretty much right. So a seller has taken back a note as part of selling a property that they have. Okay. Typically, the home is paid off, although there's some circumstances where there's a wraparound note there. But we're not going to go there today. Most notes today, that is exactly the case. So Mr. Sellers has got a paid off house. So he took some or all of his payment in the form of a note. And so he's now receiving payments on it over a time frame. And typically, seller held mortgages are originated usually 10 or 15 years, very rarely on a 30-year basis, because people don't typically want to wait 30 years to get paid after they sell a house.
Exactly. And what I love about notes is that notes is kind of like wholesaling. Like wholesaling is kind of the foundation of, of real estate investing. You got to learn how to wholesale, because if you come across a property that you don't want, then you can just wholesale it, right?
Right.
But also notes is basically the foundation of really creative bill structuring. That's really what it is. And you can, if you learn how to do notes, what it does is it opens up the door of opportunity to what you can buy. And you can you can buy a note on any property, because we do the same thing with storage and with the storage facilities.
Mm-hmm.
We can just I can just get, the owner to finance it or buy the note or whatever I want to do, so it doesn't have to just be on, single family, homes. It could be on any property.
That's right. They're notes on everything. They're business notes. They're, like you said, self-storage notes. Any big transaction, anytime a business is sold, there very likely is a note involved in that business.
Yes.
Alluded to self-storage units, but mechanics, garages, those sorts of things, they all generate notes, because it's hard for entrepreneurs to get bank financing.
Exactly. Yes. So my personal opinion is understand and learn the concepts of notes, create a really creative deal structuring, notes, and wholesaling. And if you can really understand those concepts, you could do anything to any property pretty much,
So totally with you on that, Stacey.
Exactly. Yeah. And I highly, highly recommend that you're going to Scott's session and you're going to Mike's session, so y'all can truly understand these concepts. Because especially in a downturn, especially when it comes into a downturn, you're going to hear notes more and more and more, right? Because people start thinking outside the box on how they can make money on properties that are going to become cheaper and stuff.
That's right. Yeah, it's in the lean times when they're more or originate. Although there's, at 20 billion a year, there's so much to get. I mean, and that's just for residential single family homes. That doesn't even include business notes and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Good. Okay, good. Any other final questions for Scott? And also, Scott, tell everybody kind of when you have your session for REI USA.
Okay. So our session for REI USA is the third Thursday of each month during your lunch hour, from 12 to 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. All right, well, we can wrap it up, and then we'll do. I have a session coming up on the next session, so I'll just go right into that. Okay, I appreciate everything. Thank you for coming.